It's been just about 3.5 years since I first started shipping live animals to and from all around the United States, and 2020 was by far the hardest year and most stressful year to do so. You can probably guess why. Everyone was at home, everything was getting shipped to and from people's houses, to and from people's businesses, and there was a lot of medical supplies being shipped overnight the same way that the animals are. It was just very cluttered, there were not as many workers, FedEx, UPS, everything was just suffering under tons of packages. But people also still wanted their new pet reptiles. You might have heard of the pandemic pets, where basically people got so lonely they started impulse buying new pets, which they then either regretted or the animal ended up with separation anxiety and just other issues. But regardless, that's kind of unrelated. Lots of people were wanting to get new reptiles from me, and I'm sure from many other people. So there was definitely no shortage of orders in that regard either. But it was a lot more risky and more issues arose. Some animals got stuck in delays and were at certain hubs, like different FedEx hubs, for more than one night, which normally it's just one night, where technically if you dropped an animal off right before FedEx closes, say at about 8 to 8:30 p.m., and then it gets shipped and arrives the next day at around 10:30 p.m., they're only in transit for about 14 hours, but some ended up being in transit for days because of these delays. And since then, shipping recommendations for live animals have become even more strict and specific. For example, I use Shipper Reptiles to ship animals. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not affiliated other than the fact that I use them. I just use whoever gives me the best deals, and right now it's Shipper Reptiles. So maybe that'll change someday, but there's that. And basically they give me different guidelines that I don't have to follow, but that's definitely best to follow, suggesting certain days to ship, days not to ship, and they've been kind of crunching it down smaller and smaller, where there are way fewer opportunities to safely ship animals according to their recommendations, which they get because so many animals are shipped through their services that they can see the patterns of like what's safe and what isn't. So for example, I used to just ship any day Monday through Thursday, no problem whatsoever. But now, ever since the pandemic and stuff, they've only suggested shipping Tuesdays and Wednesdays, because Monday is the most chaotic day where there's tons of packages coming into the system. And if you ship Thursday, if it ends up getting delayed just one night, it actually turns into many nights because the animal is going to be stuck over the weekend. Also, you can get insurance through certain companies that basically insure if the animal does not survive, you can't revive the animal, but you can get your money back. And the regulations and rules with this have become even more strict, where if you want the insurance to apply, you have to follow even more guidelines. So the question is shipping all of these animals actually becoming more dangerous over time, and is it only going to get worse from here? Well, okay, there's definitely more things being shipped now than literally ever before in like human history. I mean, things haven't been getting shipped for that long, but it started just maybe a couple letters at your local post office, and now it's literally everything that you can imagine. But living things, dead things, cars, houses, food, whatever, it's all being shipped. And so companies can't really keep up with this demand, and so it's all kind of making the companies look bad. In my opinion, kind of a good sign for the company. Like, say in the stock world, it's kind of been working out for me because they are becoming so good at logistics that even though they can't catch up, they are building and building and building. I sound like I'm trying to sell you something. I'm not, I promise. Don't buy anything based on what I'm saying. I'm just saying shipping companies are growing, but they can't really grow fast enough with the amount of demand with things being shipped. And it's such a complicated thing to ship anything that new companies can't really compete with these big boys like FedEx, UPS, even DHL and USPS. So basically, yeah, the system is chaotic. However, with that said, I actually do believe that shipping reptiles is more safe now than it's ever been, despite all of this. And you might say, well, you're biased, because of course you're gonna say that because you have to ship animals. I don't have to ship animals. I could stop and it really wouldn't affect me that much. I only started shipping animals because I believed that it was safe, and I was convinced that it was safe. So first I learned it was safe, then I decided to ship. It's not like I was like, I'm gonna ship animals, and then I pick that it's safe. So I would argue I'm not biased about it, but everyone's biased about everything, I feel. So I'll talk about why I believe it's been safer, but I think a big reason people are talking about this a lot more now is because things are a lot more transparent, which I think is actually good. So think about, say, a decade ago, animals were shipped all the time. Multiple decades ago, animals were shipped. Basically, as long as chain pet stores have been around, there's been animals on the move all over the place, especially pets. So the first exotic reptiles in captivity that people were keeping and breeding and stuff, they weren't always in captivity. They had to be imported from wherever they lived at first. So these imported animals would get stuffed into these big crates and shipped, maybe on boats or planes or just however they can get there, preferably the cheapest way possible. Animals would die all the time, and they do still die all the time. Animals are still imported from other countries in these big crates and boxes. I'm sure you can find videos and stuff, but it is kind of hard because they're not gonna film this sort of thing. However, you can check out some of my videos where, for example, I forgot what it's called. I think it's the most infuriating Instagram DMs or something. One African company actually showed how they package them. And so that's always been happening, and it still happens. And people still don't really know about that sort of thing, like how animals get shipped from the huge warehouses that breed thousands of animals and ship them out to chain pet stores all over the country. That's still not great. It's still extremely dangerous, and tons of the animals die, but they're so cheap to produce, they don't really care. What the most of the focus is on is really small companies, like pretty much just think of any reptile channel that you know that sells and breeds animals and ships them. They're the kind of ones that get this focus on them because they publicize it more. When in reality, these are the people that are doing the most to make sure it's safe, and it is surprisingly safe. FedEx, in my experience, has been really good. Their system is so refined now that they very rarely have damaged packages, especially in my case. And of course they don't want to damage packages because that's going to make customers unhappy, make clients unhappy. And if you do insure things through FedEx, they don't want to have to pay out insurance claims. They want to just take the insurance money that you paid them up front, so they don't want things to get damaged. But it is still going to happen naturally. You can't avoid it completely. However, the more experience everyone has shipping things, the safer it gets and the cheaper it gets. I think it's crazy impressive that pretty much anyone that wants to buy an animal can pay like $50 and just get it shipped to them overnight. The fact that it goes through so many steps, from the location you drop the box off to all these steps, maybe multiple airplanes, definitely multiple trucks, and probably a few dozen human hands, not including the robot arms that move these boxes all the way across the country in less than 12 hours. Like, it's impressive, and I think it's pretty cool. And so right now, to ship a reptile, it's very simple. You get a box, preferably insulated. You can get a heat or cool pack. You order a label, and you just put the appropriate stickers and stuff to make sure the deliverer and shipper knows what's inside of it if it's important that you disclose it. And the majority of the blame in the cases that animals do arrive, say deceased or injured or even just a bit stressed out, that is almost always blamed on the last mile delivery person. That's the person driving the FedEx ground truck that comes up to your house, runs to your door, drops it off, or gives it to you if there's a signature or whatever. These are always the people that get blamed for it arriving damaged. When in reality, although I don't have like the statistics for this because I don't know if it's really kept track, I highly doubt that these people cause even like 10% of the issues. There was a recent comment, I think it's a cool idea, where they said you should like add a picture of a cute reptile with a little speech bubble, like, I'm in here, please be careful. For one, these people are working very quickly. They don't really have time to read all that. But the people that are gonna read it are already pretty good. Like, of course there is gonna be the rogue FedEx employee that just throws boxes at the port and stuff, but this is not the biggest concern with shipping animals. Even for me, there was one of my local FedEx hubs, I dropped a package off and I left. And then almost immediately, I got contacted by the customer who was like, wait, I can't take delivery tomorrow. And so I drove back to FedEx and I was like, I know this is annoying, but is there any way you can give me that package back and I could bring it back tomorrow? Most of the hubs around me, they know me by now because I've shipped so much, and they really are super friendly, super helpful, and do everything they can. But they went to the back and they said it was already so deep in the pile of boxes that they literally could not reach it. Like, there was no way to get to it. And so that gives you an idea. There's literally piles of boxes which then get conveyed to different areas. And most of it is done by robots. When it goes to the really big hubs in, like, I think why did I say Texas? Biggest hub is in Memphis, Tennessee, something like that. And so these are the hubs where it's mostly just robots doing all the work, where people do still intervene and do stuff, but most of it is robotic. And I have a feeling that this is probably when animals run into more issues. And it's also weather-based. Like if an airplane, if something happens on the plane, if there's a climate issue on a truck or something, where it gets too cold or it gets too hot and the box either wasn't properly packaged or it is still just too hot or cold, it's really the non-human things that I'm very confident affect the animals. But even with that said, they're still getting better. They still don't want packages to arrive damaged. Basically, it's not the last mile delivery person's fault, and for that reason, it doesn't really help to add more labels and stuff. So you can kind of see I'm going back and forth. I'm like, well, it's safe, but also there's issues here, but I still think it's safe, but there's still issues here, because my overall conclusion is it's definitely not a perfect system. There are definitely still flaws and definitely still animals that do not survive shipment and stuff like that. However, it is way improved, and I'm confident it's going to keep getting better. So although it is more publicized, like say if you type in reptile unboxing, for me it autofills gone wrong, because people like negative stuff. They're gonna search out the negative things. This is a negative title on this video, even though I actually believe it's positive. I'll be honest, any video with a negative title gets twice the views. So it'll be the same content, but people really stick to that negativity. Sometimes that can be good because it makes people focus on the bad and then like try and fix it or whatever. But other times it's just a bit much when actually things are oftentimes getting better and people don't realize it. So what I say is, shipping live animals getting more dangerous? I don't think so, but it's the most animals that have ever been shipped, it's the most packages that have ever been shipped, and it's the most transparent it's ever been. I would say it is way better, and I would definitely bet that it is better, which I just said, and only gonna get better. So, however, if it does end up getting worse, I can certainly reconsider. Some people will use stuff like couriers. I've never said that word out loud. Shipping couriers? Like think Postmates, Postmates was originally made to be a courier. What is the word? Where literally just like someone takes the animal and drives it. That's not very cheap because it's not at all efficient, but maybe someday that will actually be the best option. Who knows? Maybe when everyone's driving $10,000 electric cars where everything is free travel and people have lots of free time, they can just drive the animal themselves at 300 miles an hour to another state. But right now, I think shipping is safe enough to justify doing so. If it isn't, then we can keep on watching. But I definitely think the transparency is good. There definitely needs to be more, but I can't really control everyone's transparency, so that's that. I don't think it's more dangerous, but I think it's not a perfect system, but it's getting better. And that's that. I just thought it would be an interesting video to cover because a lot of people discuss it, and I like talking about it too. I know there's a lot more I could talk about in regards to shipping live animals. I'm happy to do another. If you have any questions about shipping, let me know, and maybe I could do a follow-up or something. And I'm hoping you can't see that fruit fly by the lens because it's been flying there constantly. I apologize. I'm gonna ship it out of my house and hope it does not survive. But that's it for this video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.